Dr. Lindley, how is the medical freedom community feeling right now?
When COVID happened, I really struggled with the mandate part the most.
You and your community has been saying just pull the mRNA platform.
The science research is out there, but it seems that we're ignoring it. Even the NIH, you cannot vaccinate your way out of life.
We will have no civilization if those who commit themselves to doing the right things are squashed and silenced.
You could not have said that more perfectly. That's it. And allow your body to do its job. If it cannot do its job, then go to your doctor and find someone that can help you. But we need to realize that we cannot live in sterile bubble. And the answer is not going to come from pharmaceutical companies.
I'm Nicole Shanahan. Welcome to Back to the People podcast, which highlights the growth of a movement uniting America, where our government is free from corporate capture and where we give voice back to the American public. Dr. Kat Lindley, thank you so much for joining me today here on Back to the People podcast. You are part of a very vocal, very out in front group of medical freedom doctors. You've been tracking the medical freedom movement for a large portion of your career. You have a background in overseeing many clinics, especially in rural America. You were born in Yugoslavia, left when you were 18, fled the war, and made your way to the United States to become a doctor of osteopathic medicine. And I know that we know many, many people in common in the medical freedom world. And I wanted to bring you on because in the medical freedom world, it's not the most organized structurally, but really the cream rises to the top. And you have risen because you were trusted, because you were firm, you are committed to the truth. And the way that I understand this community has operated, it really is on the basis of who has maintained their integrity, who is vocalizing things effectively, and how effective you are in communicating with the other leadership. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. It's been a journey. I think, my own personal history prepared me for this. I always thought a little bit against the grain because to me, certain aspects of American values and freedom are very, very important. So when COVID happened, I really struggled with the mandate part the most because of the fact that all of a sudden you have this government of a free nation, constitutional republic, asking its citizens to do something that they may not want to do. And I really struggled with that.
Yeah. And this idea of liberty and freedom, something that I feel like immigrants, especially immigrants from war-torn nations that have, I believe, understood what tyranny is in their blood and bones. And so is that something that you felt? Was that like a feeling you felt? Again, I mean, do you still feel it? How is the medical freedom community feeling right now?
I would say I feel hopeful, but at the same time, a little bit guarded. I'm not necessarily happy with some directions, of the nominations to the specifically HHS. Watching Zuckerberg, Bezos, and a couple others who really participated in this censorship being at the inauguration makes me wonder how come. That said, it is a new dawn, right? So we need to give them a chance and an opportunity to do the things they said they would do. I do feel, we're kind of going to get right into it, right? The political capital for banning mRNA vaccines is not there. I get that. But it doesn't mean that people like myself, Mary Talley, Dr. Linfin, and others are not going to stay kind of the course and be loud against it, because we find this whole platform to be very dangerous to the future of our children. I have 5. I find the whole thing, the bird flu that's right now in the news, the cases that are coming up using the same faulty testing. They're trying again to increase this level of fear. So I think we need to be watchful.
Yeah, I was watching the inauguration as well, and that left back corner was a mix of cabinet picks, billionaire tech people that were very much responsible for the censorship, defended this censorship, went so far as to really cruelly go after, discredit, revoke privileges. I mean, they were heartless
Hmm.
in their censorship, and they were heartless in quieting those that were hurt, deeply, deeply hurt, from being able to share their stories, from seeking help. That's the part that I think is really, really scary when you have people crying out for help. They're being silenced, told they're lying when they're just sharing their own personal experiences. I will say that a lot of those folks sitting there, they didn't get there because they were invited by President Trump. They got there because they put up millions of dollars to pay for this inauguration. Uh, the inauguration is not paid for by the taxpayers, which is nice, but that means that, the incoming president has to come up with the money somewhere. And, maybe that's one of these first steps in our the first break in any administration is that first buyout. It's a buyout of those seats. It's a buyout to sit next to the incoming Attorney General of the United States. Um, the people who ought to be investigated are literally sitting next to the individual the people want to investigate, to bring forward that investigation. And so, yeah, it's gutting. It is really gutting. We are in a nation of opportunity, but we're a nation that seems to let people get away with things and to compromise the integrity of our institutions right in front of our faces. And that is painful.
The first thing I read was that Biden pardoned Fauci, Dr. Fauci. And so many people suffered because the doctor of science, right? He told us that he is the doctor of science, made these certain directives that made no sense. The attack on natural immunity, the mandates, the lie that it was safe and effective. One of my friends made a video. It's a really funny video because it starts with 100% safe and effective. And then you see as they changed their story, it went down and down and down and down and down. And then to see someone like that pardoned, it's a little bit demoralizing. At the same time, Congress can bring him for a hearing now, and he cannot invoke the fifth. The states can still prosecute him.
We
But
can
I think,
subpoena him.
yeah, and
Mhm.
people really want justice. People want accountability. I want it too, I want these people to say why they did things that they did, why they went against medical advice. Mainstream medicine broke the trust. And now it's really the time to return the trust back. But you cannot do it if there's no accountability for the last 4 or 5 years.
It's true. I mean, we need to conduct full fact finding. And if those folks who bought their way into this inauguration want any bit of redemption, they need to be turning over names of individuals that set these censorship standards, that set that agenda up, that are behind the continuance of the pushing of the mRNA platform. It wasn't just one shot. They've created an entire platform that allows them to quickly spin out these injections at mass scale. Um, Dr. Lindley, how have you gone about your research of the mRNA vaccine? What do you find are the most problematic pieces of it?
So, as the whole thing unfolded, people like myself, Mary and others, we got together and we were texting each other about different things and the treatments and how to approach it. Because, a lot of us, those first waves, had people who really felt like they were dying, right? Their oxygen levels were low, they were scared, they didn't want to go to the hospital. So, what do you do? And we did early treatment that proved that it does work. And essentially, that's kind of how you respond to some kind of things that you've never had to deal with before. You figure out what is causing it. If you cannot go against the pathogen itself, you try to mitigate the symptoms and you try to address those issues. And then the vaccines were rolled out, this big promise that everything is going to be okay. It's safe and effective, but there was no informed consent, right? Because the paper that we get from the pharmacy, from the manufacturer, had nothing there. But people did the best they could with the information they had. Some of them got the vaccines, some were a little bit more skeptical, some had to lose their jobs over it. And then as we started learning, the big lie was that the mRNA did not stay in the deltoid because they used lipid nanoparticle. And these lipid nanoparticles, as proven for the past few years, travels around the body and it accumulates in different organs. It accumulates in spleen, in ovaries, in the heart muscle. And now we're seeing these adverse events. So how do we deal with them? We need to acknowledge them. We need to have doctors stop gaslighting patients who have been injured. And we need to, get the government to recognize it as well, because the government hasn't recognized it. There is no treatment options. These people are losing their jobs. They're losing their houses because they're paying for treatment out of pocket. And the science research is out there, but it seems that we're ignoring it. Even the NIH is ignoring it. The good thing is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, he's very good. He's very sensible scientist, and I believe that he will return some sanity back to NIH to look at these studies and maybe even fund more to figure out what we're dealing with. But we are dealing with a platform that's causing damage, there's no doubt. And as you said, the new bird flu, right? Moderna got a contract for 176 million, I believe it was in June. And just recently, they got another contract from the HHS, and I believe it's 559. Everyone should always check my numbers. I always transpose numbers. But essentially, they got $500 million in contract from our government to produce a vaccine on mRNA platform. And what have we learned so far? mRNA doesn't stay where it's supposed to stay. It
It
goes
doesn't
everywhere.
stop transmission.
No.
And I think the population would forgive that piece. They're like, okay, it's not effective. Well, we understand it. But the adverse reactions, they are plentiful. And it almost seems like the majority of people who get this injection are having some form of adverse reaction, whether it be immediate or over the next several years. And amongst those, it's pretty deadly.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that it's not deadly, it results in some chronic issue. And so, what do you think the numbers are realistically of people who are having some health reaction, negative health response as a result of their body not being able to filter out, um is it the nanolipid particles or other reaction? I mean, like it's such a complex series of things that our bodies do after we receive this mRNA vaccine. What I mean, how many millions of people do you think are impacted globally?
I haven't looked at recent numbers, so I really can't guess. But like you said, it's millions. It's not only United States, it's in UK, it's all over Europe, South America, everywhere. I'm connected with the doctors in UK and Brazil, and they're dealing with the same issues that we are dealing with. As a mom, I remember when pediatricians came out and started saying, don't worry, myocarditis is mild. And my first response to them, I actually testified against the vaccines at ACIP in pediatric population. First of all, because kids don't need it. And second, it causing issues like myocarditis. Because can you imagine, I have 4 boys, 2 are teenagers, one is almost 21 now. But I remember during that time, if one of my kids came down the stairs to tell me they're having chest pain and shortness of breath, as a mom, would I think that's mild? Even as a physician, do I think it's mild? No, because it causes scarring of the heart muscle, and it can have real repercussions later on as adults. But we've been told these lies just to sell the product around the world. In the meantime, we changed the definition of the vaccine, but not only the vaccine, but what being vaccinated means. We said that you're not vaccinated those first 14 days. So can you imagine what number would it be if they included the number of adverse events those first 14 days that they were not including initially? And I have friends, like I said, all over the world. But in UK, I have several with some severe reactions. Their government started recognizing some of this, and some of them have gotten compensation. But until we really take that liability shield back away from pharma,
Yeah.
we will deal with this forever because they're going to
Mm.
hide behind our government and we will not know the true numbers.
You said something that I've experienced as well. Doctors and the medical institutions saying, well, there's some adverse reactions, but it's still worth it. And it's not that bad. You can still live a quote full life.
Mhm.
So this narrative is a really, really weird one because I've seen it happen around my own child constantly, minimizing um, this individual's adversity that was avoidable. So when you minimize people's challenges and you minimize their um, needs and you minimize their pain, there's something really, truly awful and diabolical about it. And this is the piece that I think really gets to the heart of the issue of why people like you and me have dedicated our lives to this. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of medical freedom warriors now globally. And what they're getting at is the essence of responsibility to take responsibility for the cellular well-being and the life experiences of those around them. And that matters. It matters both in a human existence and I also believe in a spiritual existence as well. Cuz there's, this idea of like I can't go to sleep at night, right? Knowing that this is happening and doing nothing about it. And then there's also this great pain of doing the work, um, day after day, and then watching people just kind of skirt by in their lives, not caring, like genuinely just not caring that a child is deprived of being able to run across a field without suffering a heart attack, or a child who is really struggling with sensory and stomach issues and intellectual issues and like nervous system challenges. You know, those for those people out there who are just kind of going by and like saying, you guys are making too big of a deal about this. How do we get through to those individuals? Is it gonna be they're going to have to be personally impacted? Because I don't even think that's enough. Some of these people have had family members die of turbo cancers, children die of, basically suicide because a lot of the health issues result in mental health issues for young people. And they don't live full lives and they end up dying. And then others, they just medicate. They just keep medicating them. What will ever get through to these people?
No, that's a really, really hard question. I'm not sure, right? I think the only thing we can do is give our own testimonies as moms,
Mhm.
as physicians. My son, my oldest son, I don't share this a lot, but my oldest son received his vaccine, the MMR, but he was developing fine. about 18. And all of a sudden, he really became nonverbal and started behaving kind of like autistic child would if you believe that he has autism. He was very concentrated on certain tasks. He wouldn't really respond to verbal, if I was calling him, things like that. And I got concerned, and I was convinced that the vaccine was doing it. But this was during time I was still in training. I believe I was a resident at the time. And I questioned my pediatrician. I was doing actually pediatric rotation at the time. And he's like, no, 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 it's not vaccines, right? Which was fine, but I still had to deal with this child who all of a sudden would not really speak and started a little bit regressing. So the way I attacked it, I went aggressively after the physical, actually occupational therapy and speech therapy, because I recognize he's having consequences of something. Even if we don't want to say is this, I still have to do something. And it was very difficult time because, the insurances don't pay for it. I'm a resident. We're not making a lot of money, but you do what's best for your child and you just keep on fighting, fighting, and fighting.
Yeah.
So that's, another kind of life experience that armed me for what was to happen in these past 4 years. So when I started seeing doctors gaslighting other patients, it just never made sense because our job is to serve, to protect in a certain extent, to be advocates, to do what's best for the patient. And seeing how far we've fallen, it's very difficult.
Hmm.
But then you have people who did the best they could with the information they had. They got the vaccine, and now they can admit that they trusted someone, they did it, and they're seeing this because the doctor is still telling them, oh, it's not the vaccine. It's, you have a heart disease or coronary disease because your cholesterol is high or your lifestyle is sedentary, whatever. They're finding excuses, which is validating that voice in their mind that says, oh, no, it's not the vaccine. My doctor is right. It's very difficult to say, I'm not going to trust these people anymore. Some have seen the light, and how, I don't know. If I only had is it a gene that we have? Is it like some kind of mechanism in our brains that like turns on? I'm not sure, but the only way we can get other people to get it is just sharing our stories
Hmm.
and bringing it home. I think one of the reasons people listen to me is because I always say things that, like, I will not say things that I don't know. And if I don't know, I'm going to say, I really have no idea, but I can give you my opinion on it. And I think that's important. It's important to just be us and share our journeys with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a dear friend from college who went on to become an epidemiologist and to serve predominantly the AIDS community. And she is heavily influenced by anti Trump politics and believes that, um, Bobby Kennedy going into HHS is going to be a quote setback for vaccinations and the field of epidemiology. But I see the conflation in her mind. Like, if this came from the Democratic Party, if there were folks within the Democratic Party that came out and said, yes, there's been excess deaths. Yes, the mRNA platform is a form of corporate infiltration of our institutions, and they have no liability, and they have, boards that really are incentivized to make money, not necessarily to get a product out there that stops the spread of a disease. And they're incentivized to be lax. They're incentivized to move quickly. They're incentivized to use all of these government levers to ensure that they can get as many jabs and as many humans as possible. And if that means being loose with the facts, it's okay because they're forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a businesswoman. If I'm just thinking through the lens of strict capitalism, which is what a board is designed to do, is to think through the lens of how to increase value for shareholders. That is your duty. Your duty is also to make sure you're within the confines of the laws, for which they are, because the government permits it. Um, we are going to end up cycle after cycle of pandemic after pandemic in the same situation. And so if the Democratic Party, if someone within Democratic leadership came out, and I know this to be true because I know enough anti-Trump medical providers that if they heard the news from channels on the left, they would take it as truth. But if it's coming from channels on the right, they refuse to acknowledge it. So, there's a duty, I think, for all Democratic leadership right now to really, really get the message out that the mRNA platform itself is very dangerous, and that we have a duty, as Americans, as people who are responsible for the welfare of other human beings, and that responsibility requires them to, I mean, look, Dr. Lindley, you and your community has been saying just pull the mRNA platform. Just pull it. Put a moratorium on it. It needs more work. It's dangerous and it's not effective. We have the data. Just pull it. I don't hear you guys calling for anything extreme. I hear you guys calling for accountability, for transparency, for holding people accountable, for using the justice system. I don't hear anything radical coming from this community at all. Anything violent, there's nothing. I never hear it, ever. You are the most sensible group of people. And you remain, even in my opinion, conservative in spite of the knowledge that you have about what's going on. And so, if you are a Democratic politician, and this is really my plea to you, you have so much power over medical professionals right now that are resistant to Trump and his agenda, who are resistant to RFK, but and you have the evidence to really impact the lives of people directly and very quickly.
That is really true. The problem is our agencies used to do a good job. I actually went as far when I was testifying for ACIP. It was summer, probably about 2 years ago. I went and looked up the mission statement for the FDA and CDC. And essentially it's to protect the public, to keep safety, to make decisions based on concerns that they have towards the safety and serving the citizens of the United States. If you look at pharmacovigilance data that we have from previous years, they have suspended different vaccines, even medical products, because there were adverse events, there were deaths. One of them is Vioxx, which is a anti-inflammatory medication that supposedly was safe in cardiac patients, but proven not to be. It over 6,000 deaths, they pulled it, right? We had a rotavirus vaccine that was causing intussusception pulled. All they have to do is suspend the platform, let NIH and FDA do its job, let NIH do as many trials they want, because what I believe most people are realizing, the articles that we're getting in medical journals are sponsored by pharma. So if someone is sponsoring you to do research, obviously you're going to tend to steer those results towards the people who sponsor you. Will not get their sponsorships and grants again. We need transparency, 100% transparency on everything. Who's getting paid? Who is on board of what? There's no more exiting one agency and going on the board of pharma. None of that can happen anymore. So this is something that I've taught for past year. In my opinion, I've realized that public health is a noble lie. It's a lie. And I'll kind of walk you through my reasoning. As a physician, every life matters. That one person I see in front of me, I make decisions based on that person. I have to take care of that person. I have to make best decision for them. And then together we decide if that's the route they want to go. Public health makes different decisions. They say, well, if we can save 5 million lives, does it matter that we're going to lose 20, 30, 50, 1,000? Not really, because we're saving 5 million lives. So what we need to do is we need to restore practicing physicians into these agencies. And I'm not talking about top spots, because obviously, we're not bureaucrats. We cannot tell you how to run an agency. But our voices must be heard, because we're the ones that are dealing with the population one-on-one. We're the ones that know what their risks and benefits are. So we have to be at the table to discuss these things, because making a decision based on how saving 5 million lives, but losing 1,000,000 or 1,000, even if it's just one. If you're a person of faith, and it doesn't matter which faith, you recognize that every life is sacred, and decisions need to be made on that, and not on how many lives are we going to save. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and those, lives saved is strictly hypothetical. There's actually no data behind it, and the fact that these vaccines are not true inoculations, they don't prevent transmission, and they knew it. Well, let's talk about what we can do for all these millions of people that have been hurt. I will share personally that um, I have taken a few flights of ivermectin, and they've been incredibly helpful to me.
Mhm.
I have also engaged in a kind of a sweating regimen, various sweating regimens, sunshine regimens, direct sunlight regimens. And it's been really helpful, I have to say. There's a bath formula that I've enjoyed using. It's a combination of hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, borax, and bentonite clay, and magnesium. It's been very helpful. Red light therapy's been very helpful. Acupuncture, lymphatic drainage has been very helpful, but these are really expensive when you add them all up,
Mhm.
right? The bath is actually one of the cheaper things because, many of these things are over the counter and you can get at your CVS. Ivermectin's really hard to get in the United States. I've had to go to El Salvador. It's over the counter in El Salvador. It's over the counter in Mexico. And I'll just be honest with listeners. I've bought some in El Salvador and took it and had a good result. But is there? I mean, what else is there for people? People are desperate to feel better again. I know healthy adults who are not very healthy right now. A few years after getting their flight of 3 or 4 or 5 of these jabs and boosters. Um, what can they do? What else? What are we missing?
I kind of keep on telling people go back to basics, right? We are starting to have this conversation about healthy diet, healthy ingredients. But I come from Croatia. When I go home, even now, we go and buy food every single day. We don't buy it and just store it, freeze it, and things like that. You bake the fresh bread, or you go buy bread, and milk is the same thing, right? We're seeing benefits of raw milk. I've switched my whole family to raw milk. I even make my own butter because I enjoy experimenting with things like that. So it's really, even just cooking a meal and teaching your kids how to do it, in my opinion, it increases your immunity and your immune system, because you're creating this connection. We humans are based on connections, right? Um, Eating healthy, sleeping well. I wear a monitor on my wrist that helps me see how much deficits I have because I didn't sleep enough. And that happens all the time. But at least, like, I look at the red and I'm like, I really need to get closer to green. So at least if I'm in blue, I feel like I did something. So there are these little things. Take your vitamins, check your vitamin D level. that's probably the easiest thing to do, because if it's not, 50, you should really start taking your vitamin D, and you want to optimize it up to 65.
Or get sunlight, which produces vitamin D, which
Exactly.
is a
And I
hormone.
started the red wave therapy too. I even have a helmet that my kids laugh every time I put it on because it flashes on and off. So I use that, and I have the little board that I put next to me. There's so many things you can do just on your own: hydrate, exercise, all of these things help. And then if you are sick, sure, we have ivermectin, we have hydroxychloroquine, we have other medications that help. I'm part of the Independent Medical Alliance, which used to be Frontline COVID Care Alliance. And they have protocols for different things that can help people. And it's really important to just do your part at home and make sure that your immune system is optimized. Because what we're seeing, even in the population that's not vaccinated, we are getting attacked from so many viruses right now. This has been probably one of the hardest flu seasons I've had, because we have metapneumovirus, flu, strep, a little bit of COVID, not as much, but essentially it's lasting. And then the kids develop secondary pneumonia, so you have to treat with antibiotics. But the best thing that you can do for your children specifically is make sure that they sleep, they eat well, they go out in the sun, they laugh. All of these things actually improve their immune system.
Yeah, interesting. It is, these things that are basics, right? You said you used the word
Mhm.
basics. For many families, it's not so basic. I know for many families, getting outside and eating healthy and having time to cook, or even knowing how to cook, or getting foods that your children are willing to eat
Mhm.
and can digest, it doesn't feel so basic. It feels really hard for a lot of American families. It's really sad. It's really sad for me to go out there and talk to mothers and parents, and hear about how hard it is for them to start the day and finish it. It's it's kind of a bumpy path for a lot of families, just the daily basic routine. How can we restore that? How do we, if you're a doctor and you're seeing this in your patient population, I mean, these kids are just getting sick. They're so sick at school. I mean, I do school pickup, um, and I look around and it's like the teacher's out with pneumonia, and the kids are like pale. They're really, a lot of them are really struggling here in Silicon Valley, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this isn't, is this normal? Like this, it can't be that every year cold season gets worse.
The problem is that we've been conditioned to lead busy lives. Um, it really is interesting. When I go back home, it's so different, because families still come home for lunch. There's usually a break at lunchtime, and then they have dinner together. And I know when I say get back to basics, someone is like, well, I can't have two jobs. I have to pay the bills. I come home, I'm exhausted. I can't even think about what to cook. I know, but nothing comes out easily. You kind of have to make that commitment. And if you fail, you just get up next day and you pick it up. I remember listening to, it was an admiral giving a speech for graduation of cadets. And this was years ago, I don't know, 5, 6, 7. Essentially, he said, start each day by doing something, make your bed, and go from there. Keep on trying. And, we talk about eating healthier. I laugh about this Kellogg's thing, and I'm sometimes will retweet things on X and say it's not about Fruit Loops. It's about everything else, right? For me, obviously, it's about suspending this mRNA platform that's going to harm our youth and harm our future. But when it comes to parents at home, moms and dads, talk to your children, ask them to help you with the menu, and ask them to try something new every once in a while. So say, try one bite and make your plate. It's not about specific diet. I actually don't promote any specific diet, except to say that your plate should be very colorful. More colorful it is, more nutrients you're getting. And if you have to put things in a crock pot for next day, that's fine. But we need to start somewhere.
Hmm.
I wish that you could kind of just do this and everything would be beautiful. It's not going to. The commitment starts at home. I wasn't happy with the school board in my community. I ran for a school board and I got elected. Start somewhere, whatever that somewhere is for you. Make your goals and then make them bigger.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful sentiment. Get involved and do it from a place of knowing it's what's right for both your family and your community. And so the you brought up the whole Fruit Loops thing, and there's been I wouldn't say there's a division in Maha. I would say that the right way to frame it is you have some of the most high integrity people that are committed to making sure that nobody moves that goalpost, right? We know what the goal is, and we're not going anywhere.
We're not
Call it what you want to call it, Maha, medical freedom, frontline doctors. We don't care what you call it. Just suspend the mRNA vaccine platform. Just
100%.
and so the whole Fruit Loops thing, and there's been a lot of sensationalism around that of the media saying, "Oh, there's fractures in Maha." There are no fractures in the OG movement for medical freedom.
There isn't. There really isn't.
There's not a single fracture.
No.
This group of people at their nucleus is so strong and so unmovable and so committed and so aware, hyper aware of what it takes to move this forward, because you guys have been up against every single major opponent on the planet, from big pharma to big media to the Democratic Party to
And our medical boards, right?
and the medical boards.
That's the biggest threat to us.
The medical boards are the biggest threat.
They are, because they take away your ability to do what you love. And, I didn't wake up one day and decided I'm just going to go out and do interviews and podcasts and say that I don't like the mRNA vaccine. I just didn't, right? But I see a huge danger in it. And, the Fruit Loops conversation, the red dye, the glyphosate, all of these conversations, they need to be had. The problem that most of us have with that conversation is parents can choose to feed their children to the best of their ability. If they see that these things are harming them, they can choose not to buy them. But when you go into pediatrician's office in a state like Michigan or in a state like New York or California, and your doctor tells you you need to vaccinate your child, the CDC recommendation for 6 months and 9 months is to get 3 COVID vaccines. Why? Children, first of all, never really had huge side effects from the virus itself or big illnesses or things like that. But they are going to have them if you give them the vaccine. You have enough data to show you that myocarditis is a real threat to adolescent boys. We have data that shows that it accumulates in ovaries. So what is that going to be for the future of our generations to come?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. There's a population crisis.
Yeah.
Population is in decline. All the numbers are coming out. It's not looking good. The kids that are being born, a lot of them are sick and unable to work and lead normal lives and contribute to society. And so, where is this cognitive dissonance of people who understand that problem, but don't understand that the mRNA vaccine is accelerating this problem in ways that you and I understand, and few other people understand, but it is too small of a group for any major change. And so this group right now that, is aware of all of the impacts of mRNA, including the population impact, this is the piece that I actually think we have the biggest opportunity is the economic damage that mRNA is having on this country and globally. The economic damage is catastrophic and it's multi-generational.
Mhm.
And we are going to start seeing it. And if you can't look at those economic numbers in the next 10 years and point back to, oh, it's because we poisoned women's ovaries, we poisoned young children so that they aren't able to serve in our military. I mean, this is a national security threat, but it is an economic threat as well. And so that I think is our biggest argument right now, because all of those people in powers of position, all of those folks at Trump's inauguration, they understand what's going on with the economy, but they're not yet tying it to the damage the mRNA vaccine is doing to our population. That's
Yeah.
the cognitive dissonance we need to get over right now.
Yeah, definitely. And they say cancers are on the rise, and food and like I said, and the additives are causing cancers, but no one wants to talk about what has accelerated that, right? What has accelerated the cardiac disease, the neurologic disease. Ed Dowd is really good at pointing this, and I believe they're going to catch up to it soon enough. But in the meantime, what we have to do is just protect the children. Essentially, I feel that we have done our job to a certain extent. If you look at the booster uptake, it's very low, which is great. But this is now, war on children. And I worry about the blue states where the CDC vaccine schedule is still being closely followed. And I worry about the bird flu vaccine. I worry about Moderna getting this contract. They should never have gotten contract based on what they did with the COVID vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
It makes no sense. And like you said, there is capitalism and there is a lot of issues with all that. And I'm all for people doing well, but they cannot do well on the backs of American people. And this is where we need to start making people accountable. You need to, Mary Talley Bowden, myself, and two other physicians did create Americans for Health Freedom. You need to go to your representatives and ask them to sign the pledge. And the pledge is essentially to suspend the mRNA platform. It has to happen because I'm really not an alarmist. I'm one of those, out of our group of doctors, I'm probably the most calm one. But this is a huge attack on the future generations, on my kids, on your kids, on your child. We
And
will not,
shedding is real. So even if you
yes.
don't get the vaccine, the shedding of these proteins impacts those around you. I mean, we've seen it impact women who are not vaccinated with the mRNA vaccine and they got sick.
Mhm.
They had menstrual irregularities. Just being in the vicinity, a very close vicinity with those who have had the vaccine, especially recently, and were in these large shedding events.
It's real, and we have enough articles out there that we've proven it. And now it's up to, I will give the torch to Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. He's a good guy. He's a good friend. But, I'm hoping he will restore sanity and honor to NIH, because all NIH and FDA have to do is say, you know what? Let's spend this for a little while. Let's do our own research. Let's see if all these physicians and scientists around the world are telling the truth. Is this really the fact? Is this harming? I'm hoping that there will be a restoration of honor.
Honor.
Honor. We need honor back.
We need honor back. Yeah, I was recently in Japan, and this is a country. It was one of the things I said. I was like, it was nice to be in a country where all of the citizens align with honor. And it also happens to be the country that has made statements against the mRNA vaccine public and have allowed their researchers to publish on it. And so, y- uh, I know you went out to Geneva during the WHO protests,
Mhm.
and Japanese researchers have really been part of the front of this, right? There's I can't remember names off the top of my head, but I can think of three of them whose work that I keep coming back to. Honor, honor. This is about honor, and it's about why honor matters. We will have no civilization without honor. We will have no civilization without accountability. We will have no civilization if those who commit themselves to doing the right things are squashed, right, and silenced. And so to return honor back, we actually have to ban the mRNA platform for the time being. It is necessary for civilization.
You could not have said that more perfectly. That's it. It goes back to that primary feeling that life is sacred. And if you see that damage is being done, then you need to halt and you need to rethink what you're doing. And you need to think of consequences of what you're doing. But no one has done that. Everyone keeps on pushing for it. And we need to get back to recognizing that life is sacred and that honor matters.
Honor matters. Well, Dr. Lindley, thank you to you and all of those around you that have gotten us this far. We would probably be all jabbed with four of these, new mRNA bird flu vaccines had it not been for the good work of people trying to bring some sanity to the situation. And yes, I am concerned with their plans for the bird flu because it turns out that, and I'm talking to someone later today who is showing us that weather modification actually exacerbates respiratory symptoms. So weather modification that has been happening for we're aware of at least a decade, and there are things that are happening in our environment that are making us sick in ways that look like viral infections or can exacerbate viral infections, that are then, the basis for these companies like Moderna to say, here's an mRNA vaccine for RSV. Here's an mRNA vaccine for the flu. Let's combine them all. Here's this, right? And this is insanity. It's dishonorable. It's anti-civilization. And I think that we are at a point where so much harm has been done. And we can think through the next 10 years. And we are in a critical moment of how do we salvage the cellular health, the reproductive health, the mitochondrial health of people? How do we salvage it? We are in the salvage stage of this mess while also still combating the insanity of people continuing to push it. I mean, it's really fighting on two fronts right now.
It is. And people have to realize you cannot vaccinate your way out of life. It's just not possible. The things that you can do is actually prime your immune system to respond to it. God has created us and created this body to know what to do. So allow it to do it, right? If you get sniffles, you don't need an antibiotic or ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine right away. Make yourself bone broth soup. Like I always say, go back to basics. Eat a couple of oranges, get your vitamin C, go out in the sun, read a book, sleep better, and allow your body to do its job. If it cannot do its job, then go to your doctor and find someone that can help you. But we need to realize that we cannot live in sterile bubble. And the answer is not going to come from pharmaceutical companies. It's not going to come from any administration. it comes from you. It comes from your family. It comes from your grandparents. Though they taught you how to do these things. So just remember who you are, retake your life back, and do what's best for you and your family.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you very much. You have me in your corner, and we've got to both pray and work our butts off to make sure that we discontinue what many have described, I think, accurately as an iatrogenocide against humanity.
Yeah. And we must teach our children. I can tell you that my kids listen to me talk at these podcasts and different things, and they know. They'll ask me questions. So we must teach our children. We must teach them value. We must teach them that this country is one of the best countries in the world with lots of opportunities. But we need to defend for what it stands, right? The Constitution. This is why I had struggled with mandates from the beginning. We have to teach our kids how to take care of themselves. Take them shopping, cook a meal with them. My family taught me how to cook when I was 8 years old, and I remember one episode when I put too much salt in my bolognese and I had to add sugar, and my grandma saw me and yelled at me. But these little things, these little errors and ways of things that we teach them will stay with them forever. This is how generations maintain their bond. So
Yeah,
stay vigilant and do the best you can.
there we go. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Really
ma'am.
appreciate it.